Hello and welcome back to the ReDiscover Psychological Services YouTube channel. My name is Trevor and I'm here with Wanda. And Wanda is the clinical director and owner of ReDiscover Psychological Services in Edmonton. And our topic for today is the 5 most challenging issues that couples face. I know that you are a couples therapist and family therapy expert. I'll call you an expert.
Sure.
Okay, I'll call you an expert. Even though the college doesn't like anyone calling anyone an expert.
That's right.
We'll just say that you are. In my eyes, you're more of an expert than I am. Let's just put it that way. Today we're going to start off with a quote from a TEDx talk. Sometimes the smallest thing can make the biggest difference. And it's so true. These little things that we can do for our significant other, they make a big deal. Even a compliment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Compliments are always good. And they have to be heartfelt. They can't be just fake compliments. They have to be real compliments. Like, hey, I like your hair today. It looks really great. Did you do something different? Even small things like that.
It actually reinforces that behavior. So your partner will want to do more of that because they want to please you.
Right?
Yeah.
So, top tip. Here's a quick stat or fact for you guys today. There's been a shift towards common law living in recent years. According to the census, over 1/5 of all couples were living common law in 2016. And that's in Canada, I believe the stat is from. So a lot of people are living common law, choosing not to tie the knot, as they say, but really, whether you do or you don't, you're still treated like a married person in the eyes of the government. So there you go.
Well, and you still feel married because you have really the same issues that come up for you, whether you're common law or married or...
Yeah, these 5 challenging issues that we're going to talk about today are common, whether you're common law, married, or what have you. So I think today's going to be a really great topic for you guys to listen to and pay attention to, and also give Wanda a call if you're experiencing some of these things and want to learn how to get through these challenges, okay? So we're going to start off with number 1, communication. So communication is a biggie. It's probably the number one, I would say probably one of the number 1 problems that people have is how to properly communicate. So tell us a little bit about your experience in that and how you help
Absolutely.
couples.
So a lot of things are miscommunicated. Probably about 95% of all of our communication is miscommunicated. That's a huge number. And so it's really important that we check in with each other. If we've taken something, because of our perspective, if we've taken something the wrong way, it's really important that we check in with our partner because a lot of things are miscommunicated. A lot of the times when I see couples, that is the number 1 issue, is how do we communicate with each other? It doesn't matter how I say it or what I say, it seems to not fall like it's supposed to with my partner. And so we work really hard with couples to, say what you mean sort of thing, making sure that your point is getting across in a way that is respectful for your partner, and then clearing up any miscommunications that do come up, because we can't expect that we're going to communicate perfectly, but then also addressing them when they come up, so we're not trying to address it later on.
Yeah, no, that's so good, because communication is hard. Knowing how to communicate, and for myself, the way I communicate or talk, even if it's just a little bit louder, it can be interpreted as I'm shouting or I'm angry. When I'm not, I'm just not, right? Because it's how I talk. So learning how to not do that is challenging. So anyways, that's my own experience, but I know communication can be tough, especially, I'm the type of person that just I'm not very talkative usually. So getting something out of me is a little bit tough, right? Sometimes.
Yeah.
So, learned how to communicate better over time. It's been a learning process, but that's life. Life is a learning process until we die. We're always learning something new. So if you are in a position where you are, in need of help with communicating with your spouse, your partner, your significant other, it's best to get help from somebody. Get help from someone like Wanda or one of her clinicians. They'd be happy to sit down with you, give you a free 15-minute consultation, and see if it's going to be a right fit for you. Okay. So let's get on to number 2. Number 2, most challenging issue that couples face is finances. Oh my goodness. This is a biggie. Tell us a little bit about how finances affect things in couples.
We normally see this more in kind of seasoned couples, just because they do have many years sometimes with, maybe not the best financial habits going on. And we like to say that couples, usually opposites attract. And so we'll generally see one that likes to spend a lot or spend on things that they think is important, and then we have a saver. And oftentimes that their views can kind of clash. And then it would be important to, usually we want to have this conversation before we get married, before we get into a very serious relationship, but that is not something that people generally talk about, is how we spend our money, and creating budgets and being able to determine each other's long-term goals when it comes to finances, and checking in and seeing if we're on track with one another. So that can become a very contentious issue when we have two people that are working, making money, or even one that's working, one that's staying home with the kids. We can then create those contentious issues about how we're spending money, and if we have enough to spend as well. When if we're not making enough and our bills exceed that, then how do we manage budget?
Yeah, this is a big one, and it affects most people, I would say.
Yeah.
Very small percentage. It's not a thought, but a lot of people, have conversations around this on a recurring basis, I'm sure. So this is you. Give Wanda a call. It can help, learn how to manage it better. Right? Not going to solve your financial problems, but we'll teach you how to maybe have better tools in order to deal with it better.
Yeah, more communication around it. How do we communicate about finances? What are some things that can be solved? How do we go about doing that? Seeing the right people even. Yeah,
exactly. So talking to professionals really helps. So let's talk about number 3, how to deal with conflict. So this is a challenge that a lot of couples face, is how to deal with conflict and not let it get out of hand or feel, personally, challenged, when somebody when conflict arises, when you have a disagreement.
Yeah, I think we learn this really quickly in relationships of how we deal with conflict. We don't necessarily have the words to use, but we generally know then how our partner will deal with conflict when it comes up. We just talked about the, four horsemen of the apocalypse, which is the 4 styles of how we do conflict. And so generally we fall into one of those 4 styles. And so, really, how we deal with conflict is usually, again, opposite from each other. So learning how our partner deals with conflict and how we then can support them in the conflict, so we're not creating more conflict, so not grating on their nerves, not pushing buttons, and learning about that so we can help each other and support each other as a conflict. Yeah.
Excellent. So that's number 3. Number 4, raising the children. So this is a big issue that for some people it's a big deal. One wants to raise them one way, one the other way. So tell us a little bit about this challenging issue that couples face and how to deal with it.
Yeah, so like you said, very common is how we raise children. Generally, this is something that we talk about with couples before they decide to get married, or in long-term relationships. Generally, a premarital conversation is the different roles and responsibilities when it comes to parenting and what kind of rules are going to be in. So generally we do see some conflict around parenting rules. One will have one rule based on their value, while the other partner will then have the opposite rule based on their value. So really our job as counselors are to help them communicate more effectively about the parenting. Again, the couple can usually solve their differences if we get into where the value systems are. We can come up with a compromise around that. We have a couple really excellent psychologists that are, of course, family therapists, but that deal primarily with parenting. And so I do recommend, if you are seeing some parenting challenges of how we communicate with our partner, come seek them out. They're excellent. Yeah.
There you have it, guys. So that's the fourth most common challenging issue that couples face. How to raise the kids, and that's always a big one. And I think it does come down to your values, right? You should have some common values around raising the kids. What education and religion and, bedtimes.
Big ones, yeah.
Things like that. So talking about those things ahead of time is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the last one. The last one is the big one. I think it's a major thing that couples deal with and challenges that they face. Sex, right? Things you should never talk about: politics, religion, and sex. And here we're going to cover all of them.
Talk about all of them.
So obviously, sex is a big thing. We're sexual creatures, and it's a big part of being a human. Tell us about how this affects couples, and what can you do to solve that problem.
As you know, this is my favorite topic, talking about sex and sex within couples therapy. So, yes, I mean, generally we see, a partner with a high sex drive and then one with a low sex drive. And those are the most complicated things, is how do we communicate that? How do we become intimate with our partner? How do we create that space so each person is getting their needs met? And that's kind of what it comes down to is, we can't withhold, but we can't force. How do we talk in a way that's conducive to getting our needs met? And so that's really what we work on. And working on, of course, problem solving in the moment, which is individual to each couple. So if things come up in terms of, intimacy issues, sexual issues, those are things that we can help open up the conversation and problem solve as well. And of course, recommend the different professionals involved in that. So I mean, myself and there's another clinician that are pretty well versed in sex therapy and working on intimacy issues with couples. So I do recommend, again, reaching out to us and we can help in that department. We're not shy. We like talking about sex, so come talk sex within your couple.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So yeah, it's a big deal. A lot of couples deal with sexual issues, questions, and it's a big issue that I think people don't address well enough. And then if it's not dealt with in a healthy way, it leads to infidelity or other things which you don't want to get into, right? Not that it's pretty common. I think it's common that happens, and dealing with it before it becomes a problem, I think is the best advice. So if you are dealing with any of these 5 common challenges, which I'm sure you are in some sense, reach out to ReDiscover Psychological Services. They're great psychologists in Edmonton. They'd be happy to help you and talk with you and give you a free 15-minute chat to see if it's going to be a right fit for you or not. They've got a number of different therapists that you can meet with and talk with. And, Wanda, thank you so much for sharing with us today. We've got a lot more topics coming up, so thank you for joining us. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and make some comments down below, because comments helps the algorithm. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.